Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on data sufficiency. Before I get started, those of you who are here, can you please just let me know if you can hear me loud and clear? You can just type yes in the chat box if you can hear me clearly. And we'll get started in about 1 or 2 minutes. I'm waiting for a few more participants to join and then we can get started. But in the meantime, I request those of you who are here to quickly put a yes in the chat box. That would be great. I'll wait for another 10 seconds and then I'll get started. Okay, great. I can see that people can hear me, which is great. So let's get started, guys. First of all, let me very quickly introduce myself. My name is Saqib, and I am the product lead at GMAT Wiz, and I've been in the tech industry for about close to 10 years now. The platform that you see on GMAT Wiz, I've been the principal architect of that. I've worked very closely with with all the internal team to help build such a platform. Okay, so and apart from that, I've also taken the GMAT, taken the CAT, Indian version of CAT. I like taking test prep exams, and I like simplifying mathematical concepts also. Now, the purpose of this webinar obviously is to discuss about data sufficiency, and I am going to take about 70 to 80 minutes on that, and I'll be giving the last 10 minutes to for any Q&A session. So if you have any questions related to GMAT, GMAT prep, quant prep, anything at all, just feel free to ask in the last 10 minutes of the Q&A session. Okay, so let's jump right into this discussion and let's talk about why do students falter in data sufficiency questions. Now, see, my understanding is, GMAT, intentionally frames these data sufficiency questions, and they frame it in such a way that it is very easy for anyone to miss out on any edge cases. It's very tempting to solve the question very quickly and get the answer, and hence, sometimes. In some difficult questions, things might seem very obvious, and you might either end up solving the question very quickly, or even if you find it difficult, you might miss out on an edge case, and even after putting in a lot of significant time in the question, you may get it wrong. Okay, and that is something that I want to discuss today. What I want to do is I want to categorize all the different kind of mistakes that are there in data science that you can end up falling. When I say all, at least the majority of them. And I hope once you understand and if you're able to properly categorize these data sufficiency mistakes, then you should be able to tackle them or be aware of them when you are solving questions. For now, broadly, very broadly, if I have to talk about three reasons from my side where I feel, because of which I feel people falter in this data sufficiency question, then the top two would be these: a lack of conceptual clarity and a lack of thorough analysis. Now I'm showing these two together because see, the first and the foremost thing is that everyone needs to understand is that if the before we deep dive into any further and try to figure out what could be other issues, we have to be 100% sure that our concepts are perfectly clear. There are no issues with the concept. If I'm doing a question based on even order primes, I am 100% sure about all the concepts that are related to even order primes. So at least I will not make a conceptual mistake. Okay. The second thing is very, very important. I think the major reason, if I have to, out of 100%, if I have to say what's one of the major reason of making a mistake, I would kind of give 60 to 70% of the share to this particular aspect: lack of thorough analysis. Especially when you're doing a 700 level question or a 650 level question, where you actually need to deep dive a lot. If you don't do a proper pre-analysis before jumping into the statements, there is a very, very good chance that you might end up making a mistake. Third one, obviously, might sound very, not so convincing, but it's true. I've seen people looking at the question, looking at the statements, and then taking a quick guess. Hey, it seems that the answer should be C. It's obvious that the answer would be B. And then whenever you fall in whenever you have that kind of a tendency where you kind of go on the feel factor, that I have a feeling that this might be correct or incorrect or sufficient or insufficient. That is what I basically categorize as being lazy. You're not actually trying it out. You're not actually validating it, whether your feeling is correct or not. And because of that, you end up making a mistake. Okay, you end up falling for a trap. So broadly, I think if we can fix these three things, then I would say about 70 to 80% of your problems would be solved. Okay, so if you're doing 10 questions, 10 out of 8, I can guarantee you that you would be able to do well if your concepts are in place, if you do a thorough analysis while solving questions. And obviously, you need to ensure that you don't go just by the feel factor. You actually try and solve the question before and be 100% sure. I know a lot of people say it's a data sufficiency question. I don't need the exact answer, which I agree. You don't need the exact answer, but you need to solve till a point that you're 100% sure that you will get an answer. That is how I put it. Okay. Now, before I move any further and talk about the various kind of traps that you should avoid, I want your take on it. What are the, different kind of, what do you think? Do you agree with this, that these could be the mistakes? Do you have any other reasons because of which you feel you miss in data sufficiency questions? So let me know your thoughts. I'll give you about 2 to 3 minutes on that. I'll wait for your responses, so that if there's anything which you feel that I am missing out while categorizing these mistakes, I would make sure that I cover it somewhere while discussing the questions and the later part of the session. So what do you think? Why do you students falter in data sufficiency question? Apart from these, do you think there are any other reasons from your personal experience? I'm going to request all of you to participate, guys. It's totally okay to get a. There's no right and wrong answer here. Just to make it clear, it's just your thoughts. You could be right, you could be wrong. Doesn't matter. Uh, at least if your thought process is not correct, that will come out, and I can actually help you out. So I would request you to tell me what do you think when you are solving a data sufficiency question. What is the biggest reason because of which you falter in that in data sufficiency questions? Okay, I can see Sappy saying that I mostly fall for C traps, and I think lazy could be an issue. Yeah, most of the questions that are created usually, around C traps are like that only. The two options are created in such a way that will be very, very tempting for you to, combine both these statements and give the answer. So yes, if you turn out to, if you don't do the actual calculation, there's a very good chance that you would end up making a mistake, falling for a trap. Okay, Aditya is saying takes more time and do not come to a conclusive answer, unlike PS. Okay, um, take more. So generally, I've seen people take more time in some of the data sufficiency questions, especially the difficult ones where you have to create a lot of cases. Okay, so Aditya, what I would want you to do when you're doing a data sufficiency questions to kind of analyze a bit and see when you say you're not able to come to a conclusive answer, is it because there are different cases involved in the question and you're missing out on certain cases? Because that is one of the traps that they usually set up in the exam. And if that is the case, then obviously you need to start practicing questions which are specifically focused on creating cases to help you get the answer. If it is that you in general you're not able to come to a conclusive answer, then it could be a concept. It could be a conceptual issue also, because usually you should be able to come to a conclusive answer if your concept is clear. Okay, you might miss out on some cases. Okay, Biden says problem solving methodology in addition to conceptual clarity. Yes, conceptual clarity is definitely there. Problem solving methodology, I'm not pretty very sure what you mean by that. Are you trying to say that you're not able to actually solve and get the answer? Is that the problem? Concluding between two close choices. Nivedita, yes, I do agree. That's a very, very, good problem in data sufficiency also where people end up falling. We usually, when we create questions, data sufficiency questions, we always try to create answer options which would kind of make you fall either for a CE kind of a trap. So you would be tempted to mark C, but the answer would be E, and vice versa. And Aditya, those are the kind of questions where you might make a mistake, because if you're not coming to a conclusive answer, you might end up marking the answer E while the answer could be C. So that's one problem which I've seen. AD kind of a trap is a very common trap where you would feel that the answer is D, however, the answer would might be only A. Those kind of traps are definitely set. Okay. Nathan is saying I'm getting around 13 GMAT Club Quant, but in my GMAT Club practice test, I'm getting 75% accuracy. Kindly advise. Nathan, see, accuracy is not a very good indicator to figure out whether you're good or bad in quant. Ideally, I would want you to find out your weighted score. Okay, it's not important to see out of 20 whether you're getting 16 correct or like that. What you need to say is out of say 20 questions or 30 questions, whatever you're doing, how many easy, how many medium, how many hard are you getting correct? And then on the basis of that, you need to plan your strategy. Okay, so for example, if you're getting easy and medium questions correct, you can kind of conclude that your concept is in place. You need to now just focus on doing more difficult questions where the second part, which is the lack of thorough analysis, come into picture. You might not be doing a thorough analysis, and that is where you may need to work on. Okay, but don't try to look at the cumulative accuracy rate. You might not get a very good idea on how to move ahead. Yes, Abhijit, I actually did mention this, that if you don't consider all the cases, if you while trying to save time, then you might end up getting the wrong answer. How to approach the information given? I do definitely agree. In fact, whenever we discuss data sufficiency questions, we kind of focus on pre-analysis a lot, because like CR has a pre-thinking kind of a thing. In data sufficiency question, what we usually have is pre-analysis, where you spend about out of, if you're doing a question in 2.5 minutes, a data science question, we kind of end up spending 1.5 minute on the question stem itself. Oh, obviously the question stem should demand that amount of time, but we do go on doing the analysis till a point we are pretty sure what we are trying to find out. If you're not sure what you want to find out, ideally I do not suggest or recommend just reading the question stem and going into the statements, because there's a good chance you would not know how to approach the question or how many cases you need to create. But broadly, if I have to categorize all the kind of different categories or different mistakes, I would categorize it into these 5 categories. Okay, and I'll talk about them one by one. So the first is a constraint trap, and this is kind of usually happen when we are solving a question and you read the question stem very quickly. Okay, so if you read the question stem very quickly, there's a good chance that you might miss out on some important information, because of that could have helped you solve the question. Now, how many of you, tell me, have fallen for this trap that you solved all the question? Okay, you try to find out all the various cases and then realize that the question had mentioned that x is a positive integer, or x is an integer, and you did not consider that. Or how many of you felt assumed that x is an integer, solved the question, found the answer, but then realized nothing was given that x was an integer, and you end up concluding something else and mark the answer as C? How many have fallen for such kind of a trap? Not reading properly, later on realizing that there was some additional information that could have helped you solve the question, or either assuming a constraint which wasn't there in the question stem and solving the question and then marking the answer, which, obviously the incorrect answer. How many have fallen for such a problem? Okay, so Sappy here is saying that I usually end up assuming integers, uh, especially when it is not given. Okay, okay. Abhijit is also saying me. Abhyudan is also saying yes under time pressure. Mm, See, I can understand there's always there will be some time pressure like that some of the times. What about the others, by the way? How many? Is there anyone else who faced this problem? Okay, so no one is saying anything else. So let me move on to the second mistake. How many of you have fallen for a problem like you saw that there were too many variables in the question, like X, Y, Z, and you thought that hey, it's not sufficient because there are a lot of variables involved in the question. Okay, there are a lot of variables involved in the question, so you'll not get the answer. But later on, realize that you can actually get the answer by either one of the statements was true, or even after combining the statement, you were able to get the answer. How many of you fell for such a trap? Okay, so Fulham is saying that I've fallen for this trap in some algebra. SAP is saying in some algebra questions I've fallen for such traps, especially simultaneous equation. Yes, so these kind of mistakes you'll always see in questions like simultaneous equation. I've seen certain inequality questions also where you'll see this multiple variable trap mistake being set a lot, where you'll feel that there are a lot of variables in one the question and you may not get the answer. A lot of word problem question also, in fact. In fact, I'll show you a few questions where you especially profit loss kind of questions where you have to take different prices, right? Mark price, selling price, cost price, discount, a lot of variables, and you might feel hey, I might not get the answer because there are too many variables involved, or you might take up all the variables to somehow get the answer without realizing that you are falling for a trap. So I would take up a few questions like this, and I actually try and show you not to how to avoid these kind of mistakes. Okay, and obviously there's a multiple answer trap also. This is a rookie mistake, by the way, which I believe after once you you will make these kind of mistakes in the initial phase, not a lot, honestly. What I mean by multiple answer trap kind of question is a question where there are a lot of yes no kind of questions where you are asked is say x odd. Okay, and after solving the data sufficiency question, you may end up getting the value of x as say 2, 4, 10, something like this. Okay, and what you might think is, hey, I'm getting multiple answers. In data sufficiency, I should not get multiple answers. And you might discard that particular statement. You might say that this statement is not sufficient. There's a good chance that you might do that. And you will obviously be doing this in initial phase, I'm hoping. After you fall for this kind of a trap once or twice, you end up understanding that this is not a big trap to avoid. But what you need to do is you need to understand is that the question is a yes no kind of a question. So either you need to answer yes or you need to answer no. And in these cases, even if you get multiple answers, but if all these answers that you have got, if they give you the same a result that you're looking for, like for example 2, 4, 10, they are all even, right? So if the question is x odd, my answer is no for all these cases. Since my answer is no for all these cases, I'm still getting an answer, a unique answer, that no, X is not odd. So I will be able to mark my answer, whatever that answer is. So I will be able to say that statement one is sufficient. But in the initial phase, when people are preparing for data sufficiency, I've seen people discarding the statement completely, saying that I'm getting multiple answers, so this is not sufficient. So that is one of the kind of trap that you definitely need to avoid. If you haven't made this mistake ever, well and good, kudos to you. But you have, or if you come across something, now I'm pretty sure that you can be aware of this. This usually will happen only in yes no kind of question. Okay. If it is what is the value kind of question, if they ask you, if the question is what is the value of X, then obviously you always need a unique answer. So in the what is the value, you're always looking for a unique answer. In a yes no kind of question, there could be multiple answers. As long as they are giving the same result, either always yes or always no, you're good to go. Okay. Simplification trap is always mostly based with conceptual lack of thorough analysis. Okay, I'm writing in short. Lack of thorough analysis is because what's going to happen is that you might be given a very difficult looking, complex looking expression. Okay, with a lot of powers and maybe factorials and those kind of things, and you might at this point of time be lazy or under pressure of time, could be anything. Okay, and you might say I don't think there's a lot of things, there's an x square involved, x cube involved, I might get multiple answers, so let me discard the statement, let me say this is not sufficient, I'll come back to it later on. And that is what I categorize as a simplification trap, because you are not putting in effort to actually simplify and check whether you can get a unique answer or not. I've seen a lot of statements which which could be, say, for example, a statement like this. I know it's an easy one, but something like this. Say, for example, okay, now a lot of people will say, "Hey, this is not sufficient. Maybe this might not be sufficient. I have a quadratic equation, blah blah blah. I might get two answers." But if you kind of simplify it, you'll notice that x plus two. This is basically x plus two times x plus three, and this gets cancelled out. So you may get a unique answer. So simplification trap basically means simplifying it till the point that you'll realize that, hey, almost everything is getting cancelled out, and there's a very good chance that I might end up getting a unique answer. I've seen a lot of complicated looking expressions when simplified might give you something like this: some term whole square or whole cube equal to 0. Okay, so once again, if you get, again, very easy kind of a statement, I'm taking a very easy statement, but I just want to put my point across. Now again, an easy expression, but it's a quadratic equation. If you just look at it, be lazy and think it's a quadratic equation, I will not get my answer, I'll get multiple answers, so let me move on, then you're being lazy. You're not simplifying it, because if you simplify it, you'll realize that this is nothing but x minus 2 whole square. So you'll get just one unique answer, which is x equal to 2. That's it. Okay, so these kind of simplification is what I categorize it as a simplification trap. Translation, I would say, is one of the most frequent kind of a trap, especially when it comes to word problem questions. So this is word problem. This is mostly algebra, number properties. Obviously, simplification can come in WP and geometry also. But translation trap is where you are not able to set up the right equation. So you're not setting up the right equation, you are missing out on important information that is given in the question stem. And if you are kind of making these kind of mistakes, then obviously we categorize it as a translation trap, because you did not read properly the question stem to set up the right equation. Now, believe me, if you understand these 5 kind of mistakes, obviously what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few questions in which I'll be testing one of these traps. Okay. Obviously, this is a webinar, so you already know that each question has a trap, so you might be careful about it. But when you're trying to be careful, try and see why are you being careful? What are the things that you're trying to keep in mind? And if possible, make a note of these 5 on a piece of paper, and you're solving the question, try to figure out what kind of trap might have been set in this question. Okay, a particular question might have multiple traps set in it also. Okay, it's not always that one question will always be testing you one trap. Okay, now how the rest of the webinar will be going is that I'll give you a question. Most of the questions belong to the category of 600 to 700 level. I just wanted to put my point across, so I haven't taken overly difficult questions, because then the purpose is lost. There will be 1 or 2 difficult ones in between, but and I'll take in each and every question. I'll show you how should you do your pre-analysis, how should you take care of the constraint part, and how you should avoid these kind of mistakes by not getting biased by looking at multiple variables or not solving a particular expression. Okay, how it's gonna go is I'll show you the question. Okay, so the next slide would be a question. You see the question. I'll give you about 2 minutes to solve the question. I would request once you are done, just wait. Okay, don't put in your response in the chat box. I'll let you know when the time's up. Once I feel that I've given you sufficient time, 2.5 minutes, whatever is needed, I'll let you know the time's up, and then you can start posting your responses. Once I have sufficient responses, I'll start the discussion, and I'll show you how, and what's the best way to avoid these kind of traps. Okay, fair enough. Any questions at this point of time? I'll wait for another minute or two. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll answer them very quickly, and then we can move on to the first question. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat box, which is great. So I hope there are no questions at all. So let's move ahead with the first question, guys. And here is it. Okay, so I'll give you about 2 minutes, and your time starts now. You can start solving this question. Okay, I'll give you about 30 seconds more, and then your times would be up. You can start posting your responses, guys. Those of you are done, you can post your responses. Okay, I already have two responses. I'll wait for another 15 seconds, and then I'll start the discussion. If there's anyone else who would want to put in the responses, please do so quickly. Okay. Okay, three C's, one A. Interesting. Okay, two A now. Okay. So this is, guys, again, a typical AC kind of a trap. I'm not going to tell you which one, which is the trap, whether it's A or C, but this question is kind of based on the concept of forgetting the constraint trap. Okay, what I mean by that is you read the question stem so quickly, and these the information that is given in the question seems so obvious that you might not even understand that it is a constraint or an information that might actually help you solve the question. Okay, so let me show you how I do pre-analysis. Okay, uh, keep in mind that this may take some time for you to get used to. Okay, you might also feel that, hey, it's taking a lot of time. Do we have that much time? But once you kind of start doing the way I do it, it will get very you'll get used to it, and you'll be able to do it very quickly. So I usually break down these sentences. Okay, so I have this information here which says it's a short question stem, which says M is a three-digit positive odd integer. So I kind of focus on these four information. They're the four information given. It's a three-digit integer. That's point number one. So in my mind or in my piece of paper, I would kind of write it something like this, so that I do not forget that it is a three-digit integer. That's point number one. It's a positive integer, well and good. So I do not put a plus or minus sign. If I don't put anything, for me, it's always a positive integer. And there's another additional important information, which, as I told you, since we are so used to using information, we might forget about it. It's an odd integer. So the moment I see odd, I write down that this is odd. That means my C can be either 1 or 3 or 5 or 7 or 9, nothing else. Notice I used my constraint, okay, to make sure that I limit my number of choices of C. If I don't do that, if I forget about it, then there's a good chance that I might fall for a trap. And see, does not take a lot of time. I might have spent let's say, and now I'm explaining, so obviously I'm taking more time. But in the test, if I'm writing this down, it might take me 15 seconds, 20 seconds, at the max 30 seconds. Okay, worst case 30 seconds, but not more than that. Okay. And the question is pretty simple. What is the unit state of C? So I'll write somewhere here saying that I'm looking for C. So my C has to be one of these 5 values. I need to figure out which one. And since it is a what is the value kind of question, that means I'm looking for a unique answer. There's something you don't need to write down. Obviously, this should be in your mind that you're looking for a unique answer. Okay. Then I kind of move on to the first statement, which is the product of the hundreds, tens, and the units digits. So basically, product of A, B, and C, A times B times C, is 192. Now at this point of time, okay, once I write this down, in my mind I'll start thinking about the various values of A, B, and C. Okay, and here also there's a chance of making a small mistake because there's one additional constraint, or implicit constraint, I would say, that is there on this question, in this question, which I haven't written down, is that when I say M M is equal to A, B, C, there's an implicit understanding that A, B, C are basically single digit integers, right? As a three-digit number, I'll write something like this or something like this, right? So this is a single digit number, this is a single digit number, this is a single digit number. So what I infer, or what I'll visualize in my mind, is that I'm taking 3 single digit numbers, okay, I'm multiplying it, and I'm getting 192. See, I'm not rushing. I'm taking my time. These are typical questions on numbers which I know have these kind of typical constraints. I'm remembering it. I'm not forgetting it. Now, how do I figure out what to do next? So I'll take 192 and I'll start breaking it down. Okay. Now you can divide it by 2. You can divide it by 3, whatever you feel like. Take the biggest number also, which you can think is divisible. That's also fine. I can see it's divisible by 3, so I'll take 3 here. It's divisible by 2 also. You can start with that. Not a problem. But I'm taking 3 and I will be getting 64. Now 64 is something that most of us know that it is a square of 8. So I can write it as 8 times 8. You can obviously break it down any further if you want to, but the idea is to get 3 numbers, 3 single digit numbers. So it makes sense for me to break it like this. If you would have started like this with 2, breaking down 2, you can do that, but then later on you'll have to start clubbing a few values together, because you cannot have more than 3 numbers here. But the idea is that you can write 192 as 3 times 8 times 8. In this case, however, I recommend don't stop here. Always try and think if there are any other cases or not. So for example, if I shift a 2 here, okay, so I can do 3 times 2, and this would become 4, and this would be 8. So I can get a number like this also, 6 times 4 times 8. Okay. Now, at this point of time, I can if I forget my constraints, say for a moment, I might think like this: okay, I 3 times 8 times 8, so my number could be 3888. My number could be 883. My number could be 648. My number could be 684. 486. So C can take multiple values. Can anyone tell me what is a mistake in my analysis at this point of time? Why can't C? Why can't I have all these values? What's the issue with this? What is the mistake that I'm making in this case? Exactly, Shobit. That's good. C is odd, right? So I know that C has to be odd. So if C has to be odd, I'll very quickly discard this case because all these C numbers are even. So I can chuck it. This is not possible. And luckily, I have a number in 388 in which only one of the number is odd. So I can be 100% sure that my number has to be 883. There's no other possibility. C 3 has to come at the end. So C, by doing my analysis, by remembering that C can take these values, I can get my answer very quickly, and I can say my answer has to be obviously statement 1 is sufficient. So my answer either will be A or D. I can discard these cases. I know it cannot be B. I know it cannot be C. I know it cannot be E, and then I'll move on to statement 2 to analyze it independently. The tens digit is 8. Okay, so I know that out of A, B, C, this is 8. But this is not going to help me, right? This is not going to help me at all because I need C. I'm looking for this and I haven't figured that out yet. Now, a lot of you might subconsciously combine these two. If you forget about it, you might use these two, take both these cases, use statement 2 to discard this case, and then end up saying that the answer is C. But I hope now you understand why you're doing that. You're doing this because you're forgetting about two different constraints. One is about it being a single digit integer, which I'm hoping not a lot of you fell for it. The second is forgetting about the C being odd, which I can see a few of you fell for the C trap. So always, I'll give you one small advice how to avoid this is that whenever at the moment I'm about to say that, okay, this seems sufficient or insufficient, I very quickly just look at my question stem or step one, because if I'm doing it on a piece of paper, I look at my step one to very quickly see if I have missed any constraint or not. Okay, if I've used all the information that is given to me, because there's a good chance that you might not have used that information that is given in the question. Okay, so make sure that you don't forget the constraint, and whenever you're solving the question, just before marking deciding whether the statement is sufficient or not, or just before letting go of that statement thinking that, hey, I cannot do anything about it, make sure to check that you have taken all the constraints. And obviously you should, this is something is important for a lot of questions, not only for this one. You should be comfortable making cases also. Okay, so don't just stop at 388. Those of you did not make the case 468, it is okay for this question. You will not fall for a trap. But in the main exam, if you have a question which is based on, if this would have been a PS question where they would have asked you, if the constraint order is not given and they ask you how many values are possible, those kind of questions come, then you will obviously fall for a trap. You will mark the incorrect answer. Okay, so see, I preempted it. Why did I know that you'll fall for a C trap? Because question creators know that this is a tendency among students that you would end up forgetting the constraint. Okay, so it is important to make pertinent inferences. Make sure, like last digit is odd, each digit must be single digit integers. If you get used to it, make sure that you do your pre-analysis thoroughly. Take a minute to do that. Believe me, you'll be avoiding a lot of silly mistakes in the exam. Okay. So I hope it's clear how to avoid these kind of mistakes. Now, let's go to the second question. Again, be careful, be mindful, uh, try to do your pre-analysis properly, and then, look at each and every statement. So here's the next one, and I'll give you 2 minutes for this one too. Okay, guys, if you are done, then you can start posting your answers now. Okay, I have two responses so far. I'll wait for about 15 seconds more. Anyone else who wants to put in the response, please do so. Interesting response, by the way. Two D's. Okay. Okay, Pushpinder says A, Sappy says C. Okay. So B and E is missing. Anyone wants to say B, E? Okay. Okay. D. So I have three D's. Interesting. Uh, okay, Akanksha changed her answer from D to A. So two A's, two D's, one C. Okay. Let's see what the correct answer in this case is. Um, See, this is a word problem question. In fact, I expected a few more C's. To be very honest, I was expecting more C's than D's in this case, but that's okay. Uh, it's also an interesting observation for me. I would love to understand why people have chosen D in this case. So, word problem questions once again should always be solved by breaking down the sentences into small chunks. One important thing is that don't read this whole thing in one go and then come back again to reread it. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so if I'm doing my step one, which is pre-analysis, I would kind of go around reading it like this: that Ryan was driving from city A to B, which was 120 miles from city A. Okay, so I might draw a diagram like this. I would say, okay, A to B, this is 120 miles. Okay. Now he drove the first D miles in TR. So I would kind of draw a line like this. I would say D in TRs. Okay. And the next 120 minus D in 0.75 TRs. Okay. You can also, if you want, to draw a DST table, which we recommend to always jot down all the relevant information, especially whenever you are doing a break journey. So example, part one, part two, something like this. So distance D, 120 minus D. This is time T, this is 0.75 T. How this helps is it helps you understand what you need to put in the speed column. So if this is D, this is D, you know this would be D by T. You know this would be 120 minus D by 0.75 T. Okay, so because speed is distance upon time. So these are basic formulas which I am kind of assuming that you all know, so I'm obviously not elaborating on it, but that's a high level idea. Okay, so I've read till here. I've jotted down all my information. I know I don't need to go back to the first lines ever again. Done for me. Okay, now I'll read the third part, which is find out the average speed at which he drove 120 minus d mile. Okay, find out the average speed at which he drove 120 minus d mile. So I already have this. This is the speed. Okay, let's call it S2. S2 I already know is 120 minus d by 0.75 t. Okay, the average speed is, okay, what percent more? Okay, notice I'm reading very slowly. What percent more? So I'm looking for a percentage more, percentage less kind of question, right? More than the average speed at which he drove the first d miles. Okay, so I want to find out this speed S2 is what percent more than S1 if I have to summarize it. S2 is what percent more than S1. My S1 is D upon T. Now, once again, see here, a few of you might get lazy, might think that I'm looking for, S2. How do you find out percentage more? You basically find out, let me write that down, percent more. You find out by subtracting the two values, dividing by, I'm trying to find out percentage more than the average speed at which you drove the first d mile. So I'm finding my percentage more with respect to S1 times 100. So I'm looking for this. Okay. Now, I was just saying that some of you might get lazy out here. You might think, okay, S2 minus S1 upon S1, I have a D, I have a T. So there's a good chance that I would need both of these variables to get my answer. And see, the answer options, the statements are also very tempting. They're giving you D and T on serving that on a platter. So you might feel, hey, both are given. I need both of them. Let me mark C as my answer. Okay. Especially if you're under time pressure, you might do it without realizing that if you spend 15 seconds more, and I'll show you, if you spend 15 seconds more on this question, you can change your answer from C to either A or B, whatever that might be. I don't remember the answer, but you might change your answer. I think it's A only. Because this, when you solve it, if you notice carefully, by the way, you can write it like this also, just letting you know. It means the same thing. S2 minus S1 by S1 can be written as S2 by S1 minus 1. Now notice what is S2 by S1. S2 upon S1 is 120 minus D upon 0.75T divided by D upon T. And if I flip it, again, I'm doing all these steps to show you too, ideally with some practice, this D by T will get flipped because there's a division sign. Notice that T gets cancelled out. You're left with 0.75D. You're left with only D, nothing else. That is why I said I was a bit surprised when people were saying D. I couldn't understand how did you get D. D doesn't work out because if you're actually solving it, you realize that your T is getting cancelled out. See, I might even end up spending 2 minutes doing this analysis in my exam. But how is this helping me? This is helping me because I don't have to work at all while when I'm solving when I'm going to the statements. I know I don't need T. So I'll discard this directly. I'll say this is not needed, useless information. I need D. Statement 1 is giving me the value of D, so my answer has to be A. Okay. So I hope you understood the importance of pre-analysis. I hope you've understood through this question, why it is not good to just just look at the equation and be lazy and not and jump to the conclusion that if there are two variables, you would need both of them to get the answer. That is not needed. It's not always necessary that you need both the values. So always do the pre-analysis, figure out whether you need both of them, and then only mark your answer as C or A, whatever that turns out to be. Okay. Any doubt here? Any questions? Please feel free to ask. I hope this was, helpful. I hope you learned a lot from this question. I'll wait about 5-10 seconds. Any questions in this one? No? Okay. Okay, guys. So let's look at the third kind of a mistake. Here's the third question. By the way, if you're enjoying this session, I would highly, I would request you to please like this session also on YouTube so that it reaches to maximum number of people. That would be good for us. So yeah, that's it. If you're liking this session, please like the video. And I'll be giving you 2 minutes. In fact, I'll give you about 3 minutes for this one. I know there's a little bit of calculation involved in this one, so take about 2.5 to 3 minutes for this one. Another 30 seconds, guys. Okay, those of you are done, you can start posting your responses. Okay, I have two responses so far, an A and a C. What about the others? I think I've already given close to 3.5 minutes, I think. So I'll start the discussion in another 15 seconds. I'll wait for one or two more responses. I know variable based questions are slightly tricky, and variable with factorial uh, could be a bit challenging. Okay, Pushwinder says A. But meanwhile, I'm waiting for a few more responses. Just to let you know that these questions, like this is a question which would clearly be categorized as a 650, 700 level question. Okay, and what, in my opinion, what I've seen is that if you know the methodology to solve the question, like if you know how to simplify factorials, okay, and you clearly know how to solve the question, then in such cases, even if you feel that you may end up taking 2.5, 3 minutes to do it, I would recommend that you take that time. Okay. And especially if you are in the first 15, 20 questions of the actual test, it doesn't make sense to just look at the expression, get scared by it, and think, hey, simplifying would take a lot of time. Though I know how to do it, it might take a lot of time, so let me skip it. Don't do that. The skipping part can come at the later end of the exam, in the last 3 4 questions, 5 questions we have to do it. But in the initial phases, or when you're doing when you're solving questions between 20 to 26 in the exam, where you need to take call whether you need to skip a question or actually do it, in such cases, if I'm absolutely sure of how to approach a question, I usually end up doing it, and I would recommend all of you to do the same. Okay. So far, I have 4 responses, but I will go ahead with the discussion because I think we already given 4.5, 5 minutes here. So, first thing which I want to talk about is, before jumping to the question, because I want to give you a generic information also. You might come across terms like this: x minus 2, x plus 2, x plus 1, things like this, x minus 1, so on and so forth. Um, Whenever you see expressions like these, like a number with a plus one, a plus minus one, something like this, then you should always kind of visualize them on a number line and understand that they're talking about consecutive, especially if I'm writing it like this. Let me make it a little bit more clear. Something like this. They're basically talking about consecutive integers. So if I have x here, then x plus 1 would be here, x minus 1 would be here, right? X plus 2 would be here, x minus 2 would be here. So these are all consecutive integers. Okay, that's number one thing that you should be aware of. You should be able to visualize it in the exam. So when I see in the question, because I have a complicated looking expression, so I would take a close look at it and try and see what kind of expressions do I have. And ideally, you should be able to notice that these are kind of close by p plus 1. P plus 1 could be like this. P plus 1 is, say, for example, this. Let me write these in terms of p so that it becomes more clear. So I can see p plus 1 is here, p minus 2 is here, p minus 1 is here, p minus 3 is here. So they are all integers which are close to each other. Okay. What is the significance of these numbers being close, consecutive, like this? Well, in factorial, So this was my number one learning, that you should be able to visualize it. Look at one quick look, and it should be clear to you that you're dealing with numbers which are close by or consecutive to each other. The second thing is the concept of factorial. Now let's say if I have 5 factorial. 5 factorial is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the product of 5 numbers. Now 5 factorial can also be written like this. I can take this 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 and write it as 4 factorial times 5. So I'll just move 1 down, okay, from 5 to 4. So this becomes 4 factorial, and I write it as 5. I can go even one step further. I can break this down also. I can write 4 factorial as 3 factorial times 4 times 5, right? I can again break it down, write it as 2 factorial times 3 times 4 times 5. Now you might still be wondering, how are these two related, right? So think in this way: if you have p factorial, okay, now what did I do? I took this number, I went one down. 4 is what? 4 is 5. 4 is basically 5 minus 1. So I can write p factorial as p minus 1 factorial times p. If I want to go even further, one more of below, I can write it as p minus 2 factorial times p minus 1 times p. Okay. So this is how you can break down your factorial, whether it's in terms of number or whether it is in terms of variables. Okay. Now we are going to use this particular concept to solve this statement. Okay. Obviously, these are things that you should be aware of. This is something that you should not be doing it in the exam, trying to figure these things out in the exam. Ideally, you should be able to visualize. You should know how to break down factorials in terms of numbers and in terms of variables. Why is it important? Is because if you look at the first expression, and I'll be doing expression by expression, by the way. Okay. Oh, I forgot to read the question stem. My bad. Question stem is pretty easy, by the way. It's a positive integer. Okay, so your number could be 1, 2, 3, blah 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 blah. Oh, it's also given that p is greater than 5. So it's a positive integer greater than 5. The numbers could be 6, 7, 8, anything at all, any number. The question is p a prime number or not? So notice it is a yes no kind of a question. Either need to answer a complete yes or a complete no. Straightforward question stem. Now, when you look at this expression, as I was telling you, I'll be using my factorial knowledge to solve this question. And I hope you understand why I'm calling it a simplification tab, because a lot of you might not want to simplify it, all of it. And there's a good chance that you might fall for a AD kind of a trap. I'll talk about this a little bit. Okay. Now I have p minus 2 factorial in the denominator. I know p plus 1 is here. Okay. And think about it. If I want to go to p minus 2 is out here, right? So if I want to write my numerator as p minus 2 factorial, how would I do it? I will write p plus 1, I'll write p, I'll write p minus 1, and then I'll write this as p minus 2 factorial, right? I hope this part is clear. Notice I'm using kind of the same logic. I want p minus 2 factorial, so I'll take p minus 2 factorial, and whatever are above it, I'll just write them as is. If it is still not clear, you can look at this one also. What did I do with 5 factorial? I wrote the 3 numbers which I as is, and then wrote it as 2 factorial. So here's what I did. Took 3 numbers as is and took the last one as the factorial. Now how this helps me is that I can cancel this, I can cancel out this, and my first expression that I have here is nothing but p times p plus 1. Okay, so I'm writing it here. I'll come back to it later on and use it. P times p plus 1. Similarly, if you look at the second expression, again, notice you have p minus 3. So p minus 3 factorial. So if you want p minus 3 factorial, you would write p minus 3 factorial, p minus 2, p minus 1, p. That's it. Okay, we started off with p. Again, p minus 3 factorial, p minus 3 factorial, p minus 2 gone. And you're left with p minus 1 times p. Okay. Look at your last term, p plus 1 factorial. And notice if you're comfortable with it, it won't take a lot of time. See, I'm writing it very smoothly. I'm not, hesitating on how I should do it. I need a p minus 1. So p minus 1 factorial, p plus 1. And you have a p minus 1 factorial times 5. Cancel this out. Okay. So I'll need some space. So I want to do this calculation in the same page only. So I'll kind of rub these out. I want to solve this expression here. I'll do the second statement in the second side, don't worry. So first part is p times p plus 1 minus p minus 1 times p, which is equal to p times p plus 1 upon 5. Okay, now let's solve it. P square plus p minus p square plus p is equal to p square plus p upon 5. Okay, now this is getting cancelled out. You have 2p. If I take 5 to the other side, I'll get 10p is equal to p square plus p, or p square is equal to 9p. Okay, and I know p is a positive integer, so I can divide p both sides, and I'll get the value of p is equal to 9. See, I'm getting a unique answer. Look at this expression, such a huge expression, and which might be tempting for a lot of us to say E as the answer or something like that. But on simplifying it, we are getting one unique answer. And the question is P a prime number? And I can definitely say no, it is not. Okay. Is this part clear? Any questions at this point of time? Please feel free to ask, so that before I go to the second statement, I can clear it out now only. Learning, key learning once again is to make sure that you actually solve the question, simplify it completely, and then take a call whether you can get an answer or not. Don't even stop here. Some of you might stop here and think, okay, there's a quadratic equation. Again, I'll get two answers. Let me stop. Don't do that. Don't forget that p is a positive integer. By the way, there's a constraint here which I used. P is a positive integer. The constraint p is a positive integer is given. That is why I could cancel out the p's. Okay, just letting you know that otherwise I would not have been able to cancel it. I would have got two answers, p is equal to 9 or p is equal to 0. Obviously, the statement one still would have been sufficient, but I hope you get the idea that positive integer greater than 5, these are all helping me decide on the final result. The second statement will also be solved in the same way. I'll do it a bit quickly in the interest of time, because I think the main crux or the main thing takeaway which I wanted to give you is, I hope, clear to everyone. I need p minus 1, so p minus 1, p plus 1. Okay, p minus 1 factorial times p plus 1. So this gets cancelled out. So here I get just a p. Okay, I have p factorial by p minus 2 factorial times p minus 1. Okay, I need a p minus 2 factorial, so p minus 2, p minus 1, and p. Notice you will be able to cancel out this. Okay, so you have p plus p. So the left hand side is 2p. Okay, let's look at the last expression. The last one is actually interesting. 6p square, okay, or factorial 3p. Now the interesting thing here is that the bigger number is in the denominator. So far we were simplifying the numerator everywhere. We were breaking down the numerator. But here 3p minus 1 is smaller than 3p. So ideally you would have to bring down this. Because if you look at the number line, 3p is here. 3p minus 1 would be 1 less than this. Okay. So 3p minus 1 factorial times 3p. Okay. And 6p square. Cancel, cancel. P would get cancelled out, and 3 and 2. So you're left with 2p. So notice the left hand side is also 2p. The right hand side is also 2p. So obviously you'll not be able to find out the answer because you need p. This is basically cancelling out p. You're getting 0 is equal to 0. You're not actually being able to find out whether p is a prime number or not. P could be anything. If 2p is equal to p, then p could be 1, p could be 7, p could be 8, p could be 9. P can take any value. Okay, so you can never tell what is the exact value of p. So this statement is not sufficient. Now, what kind of a D trap you could have fallen for? Again, if there's a timing constraint, if you're worried about the time, what you might do is you might solve this completely. You'll figure out this is sufficient, and you might be tempted to look at this and say, hey, even this might be sufficient. So let me just mark D as my answer. Some of you might get tempted like this. Please don't do that. Those of you said the answer is D, especially, I hope it's clear why it's not D. Okay. If you know how to simplify it, take a minute extra, not a problem. Simplify it, be 100% sure, and then mark your answer. Okay. Any questions, any doubts at this point of time? I hope all these traps are clear to you. I hope you'll be able to avoid these in the exam, guys. Let's do one last question. I've already discussed the takeaway. So Let's take up one last question. By the way, one quick announcement. So we have, start recently started, changed up our pricing plans. And previously we used to sell all plans for 6 months, but now we have recently introduced short plans also for 2 months and 4 months. So those of you who are planning to take your exam in R2, and if you are interested, in preparing with GMAT Wiz, I would highly recommend looking at these pricing plans. Okay, I am also sharing a Calendly link with you all. In case you want to talk to us, before taking a call whether GMAT would make sense for you or not, then I would recommend booking a call with us. Okay, so that's briefly an announcement from our end, and let's move on to the last question of the day. By the way, I can see a question from Gagan. Can we take a prime number greater than 5 and equate both sides? See, Gagan, the question is P a prime number or not? Okay. So let's say if you take a prime number greater than 5, let's say if you take P is equal to 7 and try it out. Okay. You will not get the answer. Okay. But how can you be sure, 100% sure, that it will not work for any prime number? That's point number one. Okay. So let's say you take P is equal to 7, you saw LHS and RHS don't match. Left hand side, right hand side not matching. So can I say for 100%, can I be 100% sure that it will not work for any prime number greater than 7? That's number one. Okay. The second problem would be, in this case, the answer still was luckily, A, because it wasn't working for a prime number. But let's just say if the answer would not have been A, let's say statement 1 would not have been sufficient. Hypothetically, let's take it this way, okay? Let's say if you take P is equal to 7, you solve it, left hand side, right hand side matches. What would you do? Would you say statement 1 is sufficient, or would you then take a non-prime number, then plug that, check that whether you're getting a LHS is equal to RHS or not, and then move ahead? Are you getting my point, what I'm trying to say? So if from statement 1, in statement 1, if you take P is equal to 7, and let's say LHS RHS works, can you say this is sufficient? That's doubtful, because then you'll have to check for a non, because this is a yes no kind of question, right? So if P is equal to 7 works, you can say yes, but you have to be sure that there's no. So for then you'll have to check for a non-prime also. So see, you have to do your calculation twice. In this case, you might be, as I told you, you might be lucky, you might save yourself. Okay. But you cannot be sure. Like in second statement, you'll fall for a trap, because P is equal to 7 will also work for this, P is equal to 8 will also work for this. What would you do then? Would you say statement 2 is sufficient? So it's risky. I hope you're getting the point why I'm saying it's risky. Okay. If you still have any questions, please feel free to ask. Else, let's solve the question number 4. In fact, I have one more question after this, basically. And this is the last question. And guys, you have 2 minutes to do this one. Another 30 seconds, guys. Okay, you can start posting your answers now. Okay, two A's and one D. This might be slightly difficult for a few of you who are not yet accustomed to inequalities, which is totally okay. Don't worry. I'll be very briefly telling you how to solve these questions. But obviously, if you want to know more in detail, I'll share a video which can help you understand inequalities better. But for now, the main thing out here is to solve this question is you need some little bit of simplification. Okay, and obviously if you're good with simplification you'll be able to break this down easily. And obviously the trap that is already mentioned here on top is that you'll have to avoid the multiple answer trap, because you might feel there are multiple answers. As I told you, this is a yes no kind of a question. The question is simple: is it x prime or not? I need to answer either a yes or a no, and if I can say always yes or always no, I'll get an answer. If you forget that, then you might end up falling for a trap. So very quickly, let's look at the solution. See, whenever you are in such a situation where you see high powers, okay, what we usually do is recommend students is to first of all look for taking anything common. That's how we start doing questions, okay. Well, with a lot of high powers, there's always a chance that you can take something out common from all the terms. Now, in this case, if you notice, all of these have x, all three terms have x. In fact, if you want, you can take out x cube common from all of it. So if you take x cube common, you'll get x square. 5x plus 4 is less than 0. Now, how does this help? This helps because now what you have inside this bracket is a quadratic equation which you should be comfortable splitting it and writing it as x minus 4 times x minus 1. Okay. Again, I've done this directly. I'm assuming you know how to split it. You might take a little bit more time doing it, but the idea is to be able to split it into three parts. So notice powers are high, but yet it can be easily broken down into three different terms. Now, as far as finding the range is concerned, there's something called number line method. You might even have heard it number line method, or you might have heard the name of wavy line. Sometimes people use this name also to solve such to find out the range of x. The process is simple. Again, I'm not going into depth. I'll share a video link with you. You can look at that to learn more about how to work with number line or wavy line. But how it works is that you first of all find out the roots. For example, you equate all these three to zero. Just the way you find out the root in a quadratic equation, right? If you have something like this, to find out the root, what do? You take x minus 4 equal to 0 and you say x equal to 4, right? And then you take x minus 1 equal to 0 and then you say x equal to 1. So find out the roots. So here the root is 1, here the root is 4, and obviously if you equate x cubed to 0, you'll get x is equal to 0 only, right? So you get three roots or three numbers, whatever you want to call it, and you plot them on the number line. So you have 0, 1, and 4. Okay. Post that, the what you do is you kind of mark plus. This is something, again, this is related to wavy line method, which again I'm not going into detail. But if you notice, there are 4 regions, right? And what you do is you start from the extreme right and you start marking plus minus alternately, plus minus plus minus. Okay. Now, the significance at a high level is that when I write plus here, what it means is that whatever value of x that I take, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever value of that I take, and I plug it in the expression, okay, I'll always get a positive value. I'll always get greater than 0. Positive means greater than 0, right? Think about it. If I look at this expression here, this expression, if you take x equal to 5, you'll get 5 cube, 5 minus 4, 5 minus 1. This is greater than 0, right? Positive. Okay. But what are you looking for? You're looking for less than 0. You're looking for range of x, which would give you the value of the expression as negative. Okay. And the regions wherever you have written negative are those values of x which will give you negative. Like for example, 2, 3. Okay. If you put x equal to 2, 2 cube, 2 minus 4, 2 minus 1. So 2 minus 1 is positive. 2 minus 4 is negative, 2 cube is positive. So if you multiply it, positive, negative, positive, you'll end up getting negative. Notice. Okay. Obviously, you don't need to do all this in the exam. This is for just, just to make you understand why are we doing this. Once you go through the wavy line method, you'll have more clarity on it. But the idea is to, since you're looking for less than 0, you'll start looking for only those regions. You're not interested in the regions which are plus. So where are you getting less than 0? You're getting less than 0 between 1 and 4. So you'll say x lies between 1 and 4. And you're getting negative out here. X is less than 0. Okay. Now here some of you might end up making a mistake and saying, hey, I'm getting a lot of values. It's not possible. But don't forget the constraint. See, the constraint is coming everywhere. Before deciding whether statement 1 is sufficient or not, I'll go back to the question stem. I'll look if I'm missing out on something. It says x is a positive integer. If x is a positive integer, I'll discard x is less than 0. I'll discard this case. I'll say, hey, this is not needed. Okay. I have this range. It's an integer. So what are the integers between 1 and 4? There are only 2 integers, 2 and 3, right? Both of them are prime number. So I'll say my answer is yes. Is x prime? Yes, it is prime. See, I'm getting multiple answers, but I'm still being able to answer my question. So statement 1 turns out to be sufficient. Okay. So I hope this is clear why statement 1 is sufficient. How are we going about doing it? Okay. Notice that the inequality, though it looks inherently very difficult, it is not. All you need to do is be able to simplify, break it down into simple terms, find out the numbers, plot it on a number line, and alternatively put the sign. I'll show it again in the second statement so that it becomes perfectly clear. So, please observe carefully. X to the power 7 minus 6 minus 12x to the power 5 less than 0. Again, no need to panic. I can see that x is present in all of them. In fact, I can take out x to the power 5 common. If I take x to the power 5 common, I'll get a quadratic equation, okay, which I can again simplify easily. This is minus 12, right? Minus 1. So this would be x minus 4, x plus 3 is less than 0. Okay. Now what would be the roots? This, if I x plus 3 equal to 0, let me do it on top somewhere. If x plus 3 equal to 0, you'll get x equal to minus 3. That is one of the roots. If you take x minus 4 equal to 0, you'll get x equal to 4, another root. And x to the power 5 equal to 0 would give you x equal to 0, another root. So see, you have 3 roots. Without worrying much, you simply plot them on the number line. Minus 3, 0, and 4. What do you do next? From the extreme right, start with positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay. What are you looking for? You're looking for less than 0. Where are you getting a negative sign? You're getting it here. Between 0 and 4. And you're getting it here. X less than minus 3. Okay. Once again, before discarding the statement, look at the constraint. It's a positive integer. So this values x less than minus 3 is useless. You don't need to do it. X is between 0 and 4. What values are possible? X equal to 1, x equal to 2, x equal to 3. Now these give the answer as yes. Is x prime? Yes. But 1 is neither prime nor composite. So here my answer becomes no. Now notice I'm getting multiple answers and I'm getting contradictory yes and no's. The moment you have contradictory yes and no's, you will say that this is not sufficient. So statement 2 turns out to be not sufficient. This is sufficient. So the answer is A. So these are certain difficult questions where you'll see multiple traps are set. Constraint trap is set because you know that there's a positive integer given. You might miss out on that and mark your answer as either C or E. Okay. Simplification constraint is definitely there. You might not want to simplify it fully. You might get scared with the powers and decide not to simplify it. And third, obviously, if you are able to overcome all of that, then the multiple answer trap is always there for you. So if you don't take care of that, then that also can be a problem. A lot of you look at inequalities and simply think like that I cannot get my answer. So I hope through the help of this question, it is perfectly clear why it's important for you to, do your full analysis and not fall for a unique answer kind of a problem. Okay. And this is something which I've already mentioned that if it is what is the value kind of question, only then we look for a unique answer. Otherwise, we do not. Okay. So this is the last question for the day, guys. And I'll give you 2 minutes again to do this one. In fact, 2.5 minutes because you have to set up a few equations in this one, and then we'll wrap up the session. Okay, a very interesting question. In fact, there's an official question similar to this, and it's highly conceptual, a good one. So take 2.5 minutes to do this question. And if you have any doubts, any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat box. By the way, guys, this is the number line video. If you want to take a look at it, you can do so. Um, if you're interested in knowing how to solve questions using number line method, this YouTube video actually covers that. Okay. Okay, guys, last 30 seconds. Those of you are done can start posting answers, by the way. This is a 7-level question, Abhijit. Okay, so Abhijit thinks that the answer should be C. What about the others? The language might be slightly tricky. Okay, I'll wait for another 30 seconds and then I'll start the discussion. Okay, 1C, 1B. What about the others? Come on, guys, it's okay even if you fall for the trap. That's totally fine. A few responses. I'll wait for one or two more responses. Okay, let me start the discussion. Then I think people are still not sure what the answer could be. Okay, so this is the last trap, which is the translation trap and two variable trap. In fact, this is a multiple variable trap kind of a question, but a lot of it hinges on the translation part. Okay. Once again, you need to make sure that whenever you're doing a word problem question, you break down the question stem properly. Okay, slowly, steadily writing down each and every information so that you don't have to go back again to the question stem. Okay. Okay. So Pushpendra also thinks the answer should be B. Okay. So let's see whether it's B or C. Uh, First of all, the first line of the sentence is pretty simple. It simply says that there's an electronic store that offers deal to its customers. uh, a customer who buys three watches of model X, three watches. So I'll write down somewhere three watch, okay, of model X, each having the same cost price. So each have the same cost price. So I'll write CP for one, okay, a CP as CP for each, okay, for one watch. It's also important that you decide what are you writing. When you say CP, do you mean the CP for all three watches? Do you mean for one watch? This is pretty important to have that clarification in your mind. So when I say CP and I write each, I mean I'm talking about just one watch, okay. The cost of each is the same. Let me assume it as CP. So the customers who buy three watches of Model X, each having the same cost price, pay the marked price for the first two. Okay, so now they are segregating between these three watches. So the moment I see something like this, what I do is I kind of write it like this: watch one, watch two, watch three. I don't want to make a mistake. Okay, and I start segregating it into CP and MP because that's a better way to do it. So I'll say, okay, the cost price is the same. So let me take all of them as CP. For the first two, I'm paying the marked price. Fair enough. Pay the marked price for the first two and a discounted price for the third one. So I'm paying a discounted price. So let me write it as M minus D. So if MP minus D, where D is my discount. Okay. So far so good. I don't need to go back to the first lines ever again. I know all the information that is there in this table. Okay. Now the store makes half the profit. Now they're talking about profit, half the profit from the sale of three watches. Okay. So what is my profit from the sale of three watches? I'll write that first. What is my profit? Total SP minus total CP. So what is my total selling price? This is my total selling price, right? Which is 3MP minus D. What is my total cost price? CP plus CP plus CP, which is 3CP. Okay. So they're saying that I'm making half the profit from the sale of this. So this 3MP minus D minus 3CP is half of something, half profit of what? Okay, this information would be given in the next lines I'm hoping for. So I'm making half the profit from the sale of three watches under this deal than. Now they're comparing with somebody. Now this something. So whatever they're comparing it with will come here. Because half of something. What is that something? I'm making half the profit than it makes. So than the profit it makes from the sale of two watches at marked price. So this basically means the profit that I'm making from selling three watches is half the profit that I'm making from selling the two watches. Okay, half than it makes on the sale of two watches. Now I'm selling this same watch at marked price. So what would be my profit in this case? And I have to be careful. There are two watches. So my total selling price would be 2MP and total cost price would be 2CP. So this is my profit of selling those two model X watches at marked price. Okay. So see, I've set up my equation properly. Okay. The question is how much discount was given on the third watch. So I'm looking for the value of D. This is what I'm looking at. Now, a lot of you might, you know, uh, move ahead and look at the statements. But as I already told you, if you have an equation which you can simplify, especially you're looking for d, so it makes sense to express this in terms of d. Okay, the whole thing. So let's simplify this. What do we have? 3mp minus d minus 3cp is equal to, now you can take 2 common out of it and cancel it out. You can take d to the other side and write it as d is equal to 3mp minus mp minus 3cp plus 3cp. And I'm being careful here, okay? I don't want to make a mistake, so I'm mentally visualizing all the time. Taking this here, so minus mp. I'm taking this to the other side, so minus would become plus cp. So finally, notice my d is 2mp minus 2cp, and you can take 2 common and write it as mp minus cp. So your discount, and I'm writing it on top so this is 100% clear, is 2 times mp minus cp. What is mp minus cp? mp minus cp is profit. Now, once again, before going to the stem, ask yourself, it should be 100% clear to you, how can you get your answer? How can you get the value of d? You should write that down. You should say, okay, I can get the value of d if I know the value of mp and cp individually. Like if somebody tells me that mp is 100, cp is 20, then I can solve and get my answer of d. Or if I know the difference, if somebody tells me mp minus cp is some value, if I know the value directly, if a statement tells me this value directly, then also I can get my answer. And this is very important, guys. Otherwise, believe me, you will fall for the C trap. You will set up this equation, you'll do all the hard work, and in your mind, again, you'll think, okay, there are 2 variables, I need both these values. It is not important that if you have 2 variables, you always need 2 values. Okay, and again, when I analyze the statements, you'll realize why. So see, all of this, once again, it's a 700 level question, so there's a good chance that doing this might take you 2 minutes. 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes also, good chance, because this is a question which might take about 3 minutes to do. But after 2.5 minutes, and I haven't read the questions statements yet, I have full clarity on what I need. So when I read the statements, I will not be taking much time. Like for example, if I read my first statement, marked price is $30, so I know mp is 30, but I know my pre-analysis, I know I need mp and cp both values, then I can get my answer, or I need the difference. The first statement is giving me just one value. It is not giving me the second value. Since it is not giving me the second value, this is not sufficient. So discarding statement becomes very easy. I will not have to spend time in this statement at all. Second statement, the profit on selling each watch, one watch, is $10. How do I find my profit? How do you find your profit? Profit is mp minus cp, right? Now, this is they're telling me mp minus cp is $10. So see, this statement is directly giving the value of mp minus cp. It is directly telling you mp minus cp is 10, which I can substitute here and get my answer. Can you see that? So this one turns out to be option B. So here the trap was a typical C trap where people might think, okay, from statement 2 I have mp minus cp. From statement 1 I know mp, so after combining I can get mp and cp. So those of you marking C, you're thinking from that perspective, which means you've fallen for the 2 variable trap. So even if you translate it properly, there is a small chance that you might not infer what you need, and if you don't infer that, you will not get the right answer. Okay, so guys, I hope it is perfectly clear on the different kind of traps that can be set in the question stem. We have discussed all kind of traps. Believe me, these are the major ones: the constraint trap, 2 variable trap, translation trap, simplification trap, multivariable trap. If while solving these questions, if you are careful about these traps, whenever you see multiple variables, what inference to make, whenever you're discarding a statement, you're going back and checking whether there's a constraint or not, which you are missing. Whenever you look at a difficult expression, if you go back, if you make sure that you simplified fully before marking the answer, whenever you see a translation question, if you make sure that you set up the right equations, believe me, the chances of making an error will reduce drastically. Okay. So that's it from my end, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session. I hope you learned how to avoid these kind of traps and what are the traps that you need to be mindful of when you're doing these questions. Now, I have about 5-10 minutes in my hand. In case you have any questions regarding GMAT, GMAT Quant, GMAT Whiz, please feel free to ask. Once again, I'm sharing the Calendly link in case you would want to, get in touch with us, want to talk to us, figure out how we can help you ace GMAT. Please feel free to book a call using this Calendly link. Okay. If you have liked this session, if you've enjoyed this session, I would request you to please like this video. It will be highly appreciated. Uh, and yeah, any questions at all, I'll wait. You're welcome, Pushpinder. I'm glad you liked the session. What about the others? Did you enjoy the session? I hope you got some good takeaways from this one. Okay, guys, so I don't see any questions in the chat box, so I hope everything is clear to you all. I'm ending the session now. In case you have any questions, you can see on your screen our email ID, support@gmatwist.com. Please feel free to write to us, and you have the calendar link there here on this page on your screen. You can book a call using this link also. Okay. You're welcome, Abhijit. I'm glad you found it helpful. In fact, we do have a session tomorrow in case you are struggling with reading comprehension and if you are interested in, improving your RC skills. I'm sharing the YouTube link for that also. You can, set a reminder for this session. This will be taken by Sunita, and I can guarantee you that it's going to be a really insightful session. So in case if you want to improve your reading comprehension skills, I would highly recommend attending the session tomorrow, same time. I'm glad you like this session, Dibdatta. Thanks a lot. Okay, guys, so I'm ending the session now. Have a great day. Take care, guys. Bye.